I mentioned yesterday you would have two choices on television last night. You could either watch the Democrat debate in Las Vegas, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but I have some clips, or you could watch President Trump's rally in Phoenix. But I first want to start with telling you something even more brilliant that President Trump did, not in Phoenix, but earlier in the day. If you didn't know this, he gave a speech in Bakersfield. So dang funny. Bakersfield, California. But so you understand why it's funny, first I want to ask Matt, the extremely wonderful producer. We have a clip. I want to have him play a very short little clip. You've probably seen it all over the internet. But it's a clip of Mike Bloomberg explaining farming. Thank goodness he can explain farming to us. Here he is, Mike Bloomberg.
Think about it. The agrarian society lasted 3,000 years, and we could teach processes. I could teach anybody, even people in this room, so no offense intended, to be a farmer. It's a process. You dig a hole, you put a seed in, you put dirt on top, add water, up comes the corn. The information economy is fundamentally different. You have to have a different skill set. You have to have a lot more gray matter.
Okay, that has been, among many things, people were piling on him last night because he did make the debate stage for the first time, the Democrat presidential debate in Las Vegas. Basically, to summarize, he's saying farmers are stupid. So President Trump, always ready, went ahead. Earlier in the day, he did the Phoenix rally last night, but earlier in the day, he went to Bakersfield, California. I'll tell you a very quick little story about Bakersfield. My husband grew up in a little town nearby. They're called Coalinga, California. We lived in San Diego when the kids were little. My father-in-law, my husband's dad, grew up in Coalinga, lived there his whole life. Years ago, I'm talking 30 years ago, my father-in-law was telling us about how ridiculous the environmental policies were in Washington and in California, that they were diverting necessary water from farmers that farms needed to protect, the left-handed tree frog. It wasn't really that. It was smelt fish. It was some fish. But the point was, they really just chose the preservation of the smelt fish over the ability of water to get to farmers who needed it. So President Trump went out to Bakersfield, very near Coalinga, this whole San Joaquin Valley area, went out and held a rally in which he talked about these things, including, as you'll see toward the end, he brought up some farmers who were in the audience and let them come and talk about the differences. Because what Trump basically announced was he's doing what he can at the federal level to get rid of these extreme regulations that made it impossible for the farms to have adequate water. And then he elbowed, figuratively, elbowed the California government, saying, and by the way, you guys got to get on board too. But here he is in Bakersfield. This is President Trump yesterday.
Thrilled to be here today as we take historic action on behalf of our incredible farmers and ranchers, growers, and communities throughout the Central Valley and all across the great state of California. What they're doing to your state is a disgrace. After decades of failure and delays in ensuring critical water access for the people of the state, we are determined to finally get your problem solved. The state's not doing anything to help, but hopefully they will eventually come along. Now that they're rationing water for people, but Devin has been from day one, from the day I met him. And, this all started because I was driving up, what was the highway, Devin, that we were driving by? 99. Does everyone know 99? And I kept saying, Devin, why are these fields all brown and they look like desert? They look like they were starved. It's too bad you have a drought. And then I'd see little patches of the most beautiful land I've ever seen. And then I'd go to the next and I'd see acres and acres of brown, really dry, horrible looking stuff. And then I'd see a patch of the most beautiful farmland I've ever seen. I said, what's going on? It's too bad you have a drought. He said, no, we don't have a drought. They won't allow us to have water in the state of California. That's how this all started. Look what's happened to San Francisco. So sad what's happened when you see a slum where it's a slum. It's worse than a slum. There's no slum like that. What they've done to San Francisco is a crying shame. And it's something that we're going to do something about, because if they don't fix it up, clean it up, take care of the homeless, do what they have to do, but clean up their city, the federal government's going to have to step in. We're going to do it in Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Real farmer. There she is, one of them.
Thank you, President Trump. I'm proud to be a fourth-generation California farmer, married to a fellow fourth-generation California farmer. I was raised by strong parents who showed me the farming lifestyle, taught me the importance of conserving our resources and the necessity of water to grow our food.
I got to cut her
Also
off.
joining
I'm
us is
sorry.
Matt Fisher, a local citrus farmer.
You know what, folks, there was another farmer. I got to cut off, make sure I have enough time to tell you. What he did out there was say, number one, we in Washington, we actually care that we have environmental policy preventing you from watering your own farm. So they had the almond farmer. The next guy that came up was and these people, these are real life, in their blue jeans and shirt not tucked in. These are real hometown America. This is farming America. President Trump made friends by doing that little, it was an hour rally at the most or something. Lined up a bunch of local officials who are running, praised Evan Nunes, kind of gave a little tweak about San Francisco, said if they don't clean up their streets, which he rightly described as worse than some slums in India, we'll do it for you. But this is President Trump seizing an advantage because Bloomberg mouthed off and said, that he could teach you how to farm, dig a hole, plant a seed. But what is brilliant because, where we are right now in this presidential cycle, you have Trump, the extremely wealthy, and the common man relates to him. He got blue-collar voters because he's not talking down at them. He's not berating America. He's not mocking America. He is talking about the goodness of the American culture and the people and wanting the American people to be able to have jobs, to supply their family, take care of their children, to be self-reliant participants in the American dream. This message resonates with, they call him Joe Lunchpail, whatever you want to describe them, the average Joe American. And you have on the left 2 billionaires now who are still in the race for president, 2 of them, and neither of them are even tolerable. I had another clip, but I'm going to run out of time because I want to hit one more point. But the debate last night, I shall summarize it for you. All of them stood on the stage and told voters all the great things they could do for them if you just send in all your money and everybody else's money. That was the first message. Send in your money. We'll take care of everything. But the second thing that evolved during this debate was the back and forth attacking each other. Bloomberg is in the mind of the ruling elites in the Democrat Party. He was going to save them because Joe Biden has kind of fallen apart and he was going to be their rational centrist. Biden is not an extremist, say the Democrats, but he's fallen apart. And I think he didn't even talk for the first 30 minutes. They didn't even ask him a question. But now they have Bloomberg. He's going to save them. And Bloomberg was the main person being attacked last night by the other candidates because they can see where the Democrat Party is heading. And so they were attacking him. And he has a history of making statements that don't fly too well with many Democrat voters. Some statements have come out. First of all, employed within his industry, he has women sign non-disclosure agreements. So they can't complain about how he acts. He apparently has a long history of sexism, at least saying gross things. I don't know if he's been inappropriately in his conduct, but he certainly says inappropriate things. He's being widely criticized for his support in the way he spoke about the stop and frisk policy in New York. He's being piled on as a billionaire. There was a great little clip with Elizabeth Warren saying about Bloomberg, essentially she said, look, we have a billionaire in this race and he disrespects women, and she rants and she goes, and I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg. It was a great moment. I'm just saying the Democrats are falling apart. They can see, and I have the polling, I'm going to get to it in my last little segment here, they are really in trouble. Biden is not going to get the nomination because people don't like him, and he's rambling, and actually they're a little bit worried, should he actually get the nomination, that all of the corruption with the Ukraine and Burisma will be front and center on headlines the rest of the year. So they don't want that. They've got Bernie Sanders, who I'm going to tell you is frightening them to death. Then they have Steyer, who didn't even make the stage last night. Steyer, by the way, will be on the ballot on Saturday in Las Vegas, but he couldn't be on the stage because he didn't meet their cut. Bloomberg was on the stage, and he, tried to hold his own, was getting pummeled left and right, but he isn't on the ballot on Saturday. Go figure.